Welcome to Thin Fat Line, the podcast that explores the line between loving yourself just as you are and the unhealthy and toxic things we do and say, sometimes in the name of health. Hosted by Whitney Andrews, a girl who has been coming to terms with her own journey of health and self-love for as long as she can remember. Warning, the following conversations may be triggering and may discuss sensitive topics. Please move forward as you feel comfortable. The goal of this podcast is to create a conversation and community of support and understanding. Welcome to Thin Fat Line.
Welcome, everybody, to Thin Fat Line. This is the podcast that explores where the line is between the things we do in the name of health that really serve us and the things that we do in the name of health that really are toxic. And we're talking about health on so many different levels, really kind of breaking it down so that health is not singular. And it's not just about how big you are, your physical health, your medical health. It is about all the things: career, relationship, parenting, physical, mental, sexual, as I was just talking before this started recording. So welcome to Thin Fat Line. My name is Whitney Andrews. I'm going to be your host. And today across the table from me, I have Miss Beth McCormick. Beth is really just a rock star. I put out a thing and I said, look, on Valentine's Day, I want to record something really kind of talking about self-love and not the cliche kind of like go take a bubble bath kind of idea of it, but really kind of falling unconditionally, grace-filled, in love with yourself. And she came and she's like, I'm totally in. She was totally in, so I'm super excited. I know Beth personally from Mighty Moms, which is an amazing organization here in Livingston Parish that we'll talk a little bit about, but really make sure that kids' only meal isn't at school, because many of the kids in our parish, we live in a very low-income parish, and food, insecurities is huge. So thank you for all the work you do with that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you. So why don't you tell people a little bit about who you are and just kind of about your mama and them, as we say down here.
Well, I am mid-40s, upper 40s, and that's been a big thing for me, but really loving to embrace the fact that I am now at this stage in my life. I have 6 kiddos. I love them dearly, but I really love those 4 grandbabies that came from some of those kiddos. There's nothing better. I do run nonprofit with my sweet partner, Dawn, Mighty Moms. And so we've been doing that now for almost 12 years. So that's been a big part of my life. I was married for 24 years. I've been single now for 4, and I am absolutely learning how to embrace being single and being my age and getting into this whole dating world and online, all of it.
The whole,
God
all
bless
of
you.
It.
Yes.
I don't know that I can go back.
And different, but it's funny that you asked me to describe who I am, because I think that's really the biggest thing that I have had a challenge with in the past 4 years, of really pretty much almost rediscovering who I am, because for so long I was a wife, I was a mother, and I was Beth Mighty Mom. And
right.
So being able to take out those bits and pieces and realizing who I am has been a huge journey for me in the last 4 years. So that's big.
I think you touched on something that I think so many can relate to, is you get kind of lumped into, this is who I am a wife. Or I always tell people I hate being in the business world, the idea of like mom boss or mom this, or because I was like, I absolutely, one of the most important things I do in my life, but it's not a singular definition of me.
Right.
Right? Just like health isn't singular. Yep. We are not singularly, we are multifaceted and
right.
complex. I think it was Shrek that said, I'm like an onion.
You gotta peel it back.
Yes. I want to say the things we learn from Shrek, from kids' movies.
That's right.
But I think, you touched on that. And so many, that's been a struggle for me, coming from, I got married at 33. And so for a long time, I was just like crazy Whitney, like partying, like whatever. I will not trade those days for the world. But really kind of redefining myself of like, there was something in the beginning stages of like marriage where it's like, I don't want to just be right. Ben's wife. I don't want to just be my oldest daughter's stepmom. I don't want to just be Birdie's mom. Like, it was very much like, how do I make sure that I hold on to that multidimensional aspect of myself?
Right.
but also really have a clear understanding of who I am.
Yeah.
Which I'm still working on.
That's right. I think we'll be working on that until the day we die.
And then
honestly.
hopefully I'll have written "there's a bum" obituary. People will be like, I know exactly what to write down, right?
That's right.
This took a turn for the dark really fast. That escalated quickly. But I think that's exactly right. And going into dating, I was just talking to a friend. I ran into an old friend and I said, Jeremy, I was just talking about you because I have this girl I work with and she's single and I always think like y'all would just be good together. He's like, well, I'm still single and I decided to get off dating apps. And I'm like, I am so glad that I met my husband pre-online dating because one, I don't think I'd translate well online. I think they'd be like, what's wrong with this girl? But two, it's just, there's so much crap out there.
It really is. I mean, like you go from one extreme to the other on that. And it's hard to pick apart what's reality, and you said it to me. I'm like, I am not me authentically if I'm not face to face. And that translates in so much of my life. Like I hate making phone calls, but I can get in front of 1,000 people and speak like it's nothing. And so there's something about being authentic and being able to read somebody that is me. And that's kind of how, and so online dating to me is so foreign, but it's also so awkward and uncomfortable. And so I am not succeeding in that department. We'll just,
I think, I don't know that the system's set up to succeed, really, if I'm being honest. But I also think that one of the best things that I did, so we should also state that we are recording this on Valentine's Day, so there couldn't be a better topic for it. But I think that one of the things I did, because whereas online dating was around when I was still single, it was a little more taboo than it is now. Like it was like, oh, you met them online, they're probably like you've been catfished. Yeah. That's what it, isn't that what you've been catfished?
Send me your locations because they're going to take you. I just need to know where you are.
So it was a little more taboo. But I remember too, like when I lived in Houston, so it was kind of away from everything that I was normal and familiar to me. And I remember I had to embrace the fact that like you're meeting somebody new. Everybody has a story. And I'm just going to even the guy that tried to convince me that aliens were real and I was going to be sucked up and started after the date sending me links to YouTube videos of alien sightings. I had to be like, this is a really special human that I would have never gotten the chance to hear this. What a boring life it would be if there weren't bad dates, if there weren't good dates, if there wasn't, I love getting food. I love meeting new people. So even if there's not an interest, and I think once I changed that around, I never online dated again because I met my husband, but through a friend, not even online.
Yeah.
But it was really kind of embracing there can be a lot of joys in dating.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. My mom had told me the other day, she was like, Beth, have you ever thought of it as just practicing? You're just practicing. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so good to think of it like that. She was like, and then you get to look at, this is something that I want to look for. And this really isn't going to work for me. And what you can and can't compromise in. And just it's, so you're kind of getting there. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to look at I am practicing dating right now, practicing finding what I can and cannot deal with in a relationship.
I think that's so perfect. And I think about it just from a motherhood standpoint too, of I talk all the time, I fully think that my husband, it's not about, I don't need him to teach my daughters how to be a lady or I don't even know if I'm qualified to do that, but how to behave or something. But what I do need him to do is show them what they deserve in a partner. And he can do that by how he treats me, how he treats his ex-wife even.
Right.
And really, because they're going to model their relationships after that. But I'm responsible for that too, and how I carry myself, how I treat other people, but also how I expect to be treated. So it's kind of if something happens and it's really kind of standing up for myself, right? In friendships and stuff like that. And so having a teenager who has had the boyfriends who, I try really hard not to be oh, I like them or I don't like them. But one of them didn't text her for her birthday and she was always reaching out. And I was like, does that feel good to you? Does he make an effort to like chat with you, or is it always one-sided? Because it's not going to change. Like, you're teaching him the expectations you have for yourself.
Right.
So I think it's kind of like, it's not only practice for you, but it's also modeling to your kids, like, it's okay. Don't settle for the first thing that comes your way.
Right. Well, and that's funny that you say that about your daughter, because just recently I started really thinking, like, what would I tell my daughter in this situation? You know, as speaking to myself, you know, like, would I really want her to engage in this? Would I really want her to continue in this relationship? And it really puts a whole different perspective on that, because most of the time I'm like, well, definitely not. Like, I would not want that for her. So why would I want that for myself?
Absolutely.
And in doing that, she's getting to see that I'm allowing somebody in my life, or in any way, small, big, whatever, to treat me a way that I would never want her to be treated. And I'm like, that's so, and so it's just those little bitty things that I'm learning in being single, that I have to be able to look at myself in a different light, in a different way, know my worth, know what I deserve. And it isn't just for me. It's because, I only have one girl, got 5 boys, and man, I'm a boy mom. I know how to rock out the boy stuff. But with her, that's the different challenge that I have had. And it's been so good to be able to ask myself that.
Well, but you're also teaching those boys, like, a woman's allowed to have self-worth. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, and I don't want to pick on men or anything, but so many times I honestly think women are harder to other women than men are to women. There's nobody meaner than another woman sometimes. But also, like, this is how a woman deserves to be treated. And she's allowed to hold herself to certain standards that aren't yours, you know?
Right.
So I guess, like, and that brings me to, like, speak on this idea, because, like, I have a lot of ideas on, like, this kind of grace. I always say a grace-filled unconditional love that, like, is like, you're allowed to fall, and I'm not going to beat myself up, because nobody's harder on you than you are on you, right? So talk about kind of like how you're discovering that from, like, maybe not having it at all to kind of like finding that kind of self-love. And
well, I think that to begin with, like, that was such a journey that was so hard, because I think the first part was really just, who am I and what do I like? Like, I can remember my therapist asking me to write down 10 things that I enjoyed. Food, where would I like to, and I struggled with that, because I think for so long in my life, it was, what do y'all want to do? What do you want to have for dinner? Where do y'all want to go today? And I just went with it. Like, I didn't ever think that my opinion mattered, my desires mattered. Like, there just really was such a lack in that. And so I think for the first couple of years, I kind of had to really discover, like, what, gosh, I do have some dreams. I do have some desires. I do have some things that I would like for myself. So before I could even love myself, I kind of had to really figure out who I was. And that was huge. It was huge. And so some of the things that I really started doing was kind of writing it down in black and white. Like, I love to dance, like crazy dance, like to anything. And I'm music bipolar. I can go from one to the other. But I started taking dance lessons, and I was like, I love this. Like,
so you were like jamming during the Super Bowl last night?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I like straight up brought my child downstairs and made her like sing every line to Snoop Dogg as if it was completely appropriate for a 6-year-old.
The entire week sending TikToks to my 20-year-old child that was, you're about to see your mom, get it? It was really funny. He's like, Mom, stop. Like, it was that. But, I went to a friend's house. We totally sat there, and there was a little bit of football during my concert. So, it was great. So, yes, I jammed out. It was great. But, but it was little things like that I started realizing that I had desires. I had things that I enjoyed. And so I started doing those things, and just being able to realize that it's not selfish for me to love myself. Like, being selfless and selfish, like, all of that, just really navigating through all of that, and then just really realizing who I was, and that I loved me just the way I was. My flaws, my quirks, I could be me, and it was okay to just be me. I didn't have to live up to anybody else's expectations. If you didn't want to be around me, cool. If you did, great. But this is me. And it was just, and in the beginning, I lost some friends. In the beginning, like, my kids really struggled with some of that, because it was, wait, this isn't this isn't mom. Like mom
Right.
would normally drop everything in the whole wide world, rearrange hers to accommodate mine. And there was a point that I really was like, I am pouring out and pouring out and pouring out to the point of being so completely empty that's not loving myself. And so that was a struggle because I was such a people pleaser. I was such a orderly, this has got to get done, all of those things in the dynamic of who I was as a wife and a mother, like completely, like it just shocked so many people in that I really started standing up for myself and I felt like that was just the beginning of my self-love journey. You had to be able to understand what is best for you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
I think so much of self-love, and it gets lost in the like, oh yeah, go take some time for yourself, go take an hour to pedicure. But so much of it is self-love is saying like, I cannot pour into other people until I fill up my pitcher.
Right.
I cannot, taking time for you is not selfish.
Yep.
It's actually one of the more selfless things you can do because it's saying I can't give you what you need until I give myself what I need, And even as a mother, for me, I know that I redefine myself in the opposite of going from I've been single for 30 plus years to like, here's this person, and becoming an instant parent in the sense that he had a child and going like, okay, so what does this look like? Because I'm going to have to take care of myself a little different because now I'm feeding into two people. And really kind of finding that confidence and drawing boundaries too. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really something is when you draw boundaries, you hit it on the head. People are not always going to like it.
Right.
And it's
especially when they're not used to it. That's not
right.
what they expected out of you or what you have given them for so long.
So you mentioned TikTok. There was a TikTok, and I'll find it and I'll send it to you after this. But there is I'm a psychologist, maybe a psychiatrist. I don't know which one he is, but his name is Matthias Barker. And he talked about sometimes people respond negatively when you draw a boundary. And instead of getting defensive and stuff like this is how you respond. And I like saved it because I was like, this happens a lot. And not just, and I say a lot, it's happened a lot recently because I've really kind of gone on this journey, really kind of embracing therapy and counseling and who am I aside from all the things from being busy. I was just talking about, being busy. Who am I separate from that? Individually, take away the company, take away even the podcast, the wife title, the mom title, like who is Whitney?
Right.
And that was one of the things that it was like, I realized that if I was going to hold on to that, like who I felt like I was, I had to draw some boundaries. Mm-hmm. And it's been really, uncomfortable for people and I wouldn't expect anything less. I can't imagine to be existing one way and then feels like a personality shift. And it really isn't. It's just that I was living the personality you wanted from me instead of what I needed from me. And so that was something really important for me to do, is drawing the boundaries. And I did. It's like I look back and I'm like, some of the friends, it's not that they're like, oh, I hate Whitney. It's just
right. Your friendship is different.
It's very different. Yeah. And it's, and I kind of even down to like my relationship with my mom is different, and how I kind of value those relationships. And it's like God one, me second, my husband third, and then my kids fourth, because I can't pour into them unless I'm pouring into myself.
Right.
In some way. And I told somebody that they're like, your kids are like number 4. And I was like, oh yeah. Like,
and that's a hard thing. Like, most people can't comprehend that because they pour so much into their children that their self completely disappears. But they're finding so much joy and pleasure and fulfillment in the whole mommyhood that they're not realizing. And I think that's something that really is huge for so many moms. Like, your successes and failures of your children are not yours. They're not yours.
Oh my gosh.
To own. And so you can't, right. And that is huge because you know what, when your kid fails, you internalize it in such a way. And then when your kid succeeds, you're just, what? I'm so proud. It's not that you shouldn't be proud. It's just that when you start to own those things as your own, like there's such a line there. Like, be proud of yourself, your successes, your failures, your walk, your journey. That's yours. Theirs is not yours.
It's even as simple as I look at the interests that our kids have. Like, my youngest was in piano forever because she just kind of gravitated to it and had like a natural talent, and she still does. And I remember we fought with her for 6 months. So from 5 to when she turned 6, so she was young. We fought with her to practice, to do this, which we were going to do anyways. And we were trying to figure out, is it just kind of a temporary thing? And finally she would just like, it's not worth the crying. Like she doesn't want to do it. And it's keeping her from, she wants to do tumbling and she wants to do like acting. And it's like, why are we fighting this? Like, just let her be. And even my oldest was like, I want to do the undercut. And she's like, well, do you like undercuts? And I was like, how do I answer this? Because like, it's not for me to like.
Yeah, right.
But at the same time, there's that level of like, I want my kids to dress a certain way and I want this. And I can remember my mom telling me one day, like, when your pants, it was like was finishing school right when the like khakis and like everybody had school uniforms phase. She's like, if your pants aren't ironed, that's a reflection of me. And I was like, I remember at 17, I was like, Mom, nobody is looking at my pants going, that girl has a really bad mom. And I remember that was the most insightful thing that I have kept with me through motherhood, because I find myself when my kid walks out and I'm like, oh my God, they're going to think I don't like buy my kid clothes. Yes. And I just had to be like, nobody is looking at my child.
Right.
Saying like, judging my motherhood. And if they are, they're not people that I need in my life. And it says more about them than that. But it is so like in the small things of their interest in the bigger things that we're like, I want to make sure that I'm not living vicariously through my children, because then there's the other aspect of then they leave.
Yeah. And yeah.
And it's like the whole idea is to leave and cleave. And the best thing I could do is set them up to where they're like, I always want you in my life, but I don't need you to survive. Mm-hmm. Like, you have raised me so well. Like, that's my hope. I tell them all the time. I was like, there are 3 things I'm doing for you. I'm saving if you want to go to college or get that. I'm saving for your therapy bills that I will inevitably like cause you. But I also am hoping to raise you to where you're just like, I'm done with her.
Yeah.
In the sweetest possible way, to where I get to be a grandparent without feeling like I still have to parent, you know? And I hope they always like need me, but not in that.
Right. That they can be independent.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I look so many times when people put all their value in that, and I'm like, what does that look like in, 18 years?
Yeah.
And so it's just been something special to explore. And I feel like every time something happens, I'm like, oh, how do I investigate this from now? Just when you get a handle on it, like, do you feel like it changes again in life?
No. I mean, I have 6 kids and their age difference is 16
I'm asking you.
years,
I need this advice.
Like, parenting adult children in this age tends to be way harder than when they were toddlers. So
thank you for striking fear into my brain.
Well, no, it's not fear. It's just preparation.
Yes.
Different age, different stage. Nothing's better. Like, I couldn't say, oh, this is the greatest stage. But, no, it's just, you just got to ride it out. That's right. 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Yeah. My youngest is 16. My oldest is 32. So I've got such a range. But I can remember when my oldest was 16, 17 years old, and I've got the, like teens and toddlers. Oh my gosh, I'm going crazy. I would go back to teens and toddlers right now if I could, because, But so, no, it's you go with the flow no matter how old they are. And I think that the biggest thing truly is just love. Like, so many times I'm like, all I can do is just love
you
them
right now,
right where they are. No matter what. I may not agree. I may not want this for you, but just love. No, I want every single one of my kids to know, you know what? No matter what you've done, no matter how hard you've fallen, I don't want to fix it for you. I want you to learn from that. But I'm just going to love you. I'm here. I'm always here, and I'm going to love.
So do you tell that to yourself?
Oh, Whitney. Just love. Probably not so much. Probably not. Like, I mean, I think I'm starting to get to the place where I try to say that, you know what, I am going to fall, and it's only a mistake if I don't learn from it. And I do try to remind myself. I have so many things written all over my mirror right now. It's ridiculous. I have one little space that I can see in to put my makeup on, but the rest of it is things that I have to remind myself on a daily basis, because that's just where I am in my journey of really learning. And I have to say, I'm brave. I can do this, all those things are on there to remind myself. But yeah, I don't know if sometimes I say I can just love me just where I am. Yeah.
Like sometimes there are days when I'm just like, I just need to meet myself where I am right now and like honor whatever it is that like I'm going through, even if I don't understand it. I'm really bad at it. I think everybody feels that way. So the fact that I recognize that I'm probably bad at it probably shows that I'm not as bad at it as I think I am.
Right.
But I used to, speaking in the mirror, I had a friend and he was a writer, or he is a writer, I guess I should say. He had a dry erase board. No, he didn't. He used to shower, like the wall of the shower, with vis-a-vis markers. And when things popped into his head, and sometimes they were like ideas for writing, but sometimes they were just like, I really thought that about myself in that moment. And I wanted to like, so he's like, I write it down in the shower as it pops into my head so that I can put it on something more permanent. And then it would just wash off later on. And I was like, that is brilliant. I don't know that my husband would allow me to have things written.
Oh, yeah. Well, I do. I write it on my mirror. I write it with a Sharpie, different colors for different things, and you just Windex it and wipe that thing off when you've mastered it and you write something new.
And so I do. I believe in the power of just like, so I think you hear it in several different ways, like how we speak affects everything. But my favorite book of the Bible from so many different perspectives is the book of James. Mm-hmm. And because it's a very broken person, and I can relate to just feeling that broken and lost and like coming, and James says the tongue is the rudder of the ship. Like it steers everything you go. And I was doing a consultation with somebody. We were talking about I was trying to simplify my supplements, if I'm being honest. And she was like, well, how's your sleep? And I was like, well, inevitably, I think it's kind of gotten to a good point. I just need to put the phone down. I need to go plug it in somewhere else because I'll scroll through TikTok because it's my happy place. And which it shouldn't be. It's probably the most unhealthy happy place ever. But I love it. I get so tickled by people. And I'm like, people are clever and fun. And look at these people. I'm on a good side of TikTok, thank God. Yeah. But like, look at these people dancing and having fun. And like, how awesome is that? Because there's a podcaster, Annie F. Downs, and she has a podcast called That Sounds Fun. And she always says, if you chase fun, joy will follow. Because fun is temporary, but joy is kind of that sustaining, peaceful excitement and stuff. But if you chase fun, joy will follow. And I'm like, look at all these people chasing their fun.
Right.
Like not taking themselves too seriously. But she was like, if you find yourself not being able to go to sleep, just speak positive thoughts into yourself. And I remember I was like, that is the most woo-woo thing I have ever heard. But I do find myself kind of being like, there is nothing in your head that cannot wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
There is nothing in your life that you do that is life and death. Your kid is healthy. They are asleep. Your husband is safe. Like your house is locked. Like all the things, like have you done all the things to take care of yourself? You've brushed your teeth. You've flossed. Floss your teeth, people. Go to bed.
Right.
She's like, just speak it into yourself. And she's like, and if you do that, then you'll wake up in a more positive mindset. I'm like, woo woo. You are speaking witchcraft.
Right.
But it's so true.
It is true.
And so I love the mirror thing. I am more of a I have to say it over and over and over and over again. I can't read it. I think that's the audible. That's the ADD in me. I don't read books. I listen to, Yeah. So sometimes I do. I told somebody the other day, I was like, I think I created this whole podcast so I could just hear it for myself, hear myself say things. But also so my kids I would have a little bit of clout with them. See? Right. I'm published. I published myself. Ignore that fact. But yes. But I do think it's something special and that kind of grace filled. And so you have so for those of you that aren't seeing this on the video, there's the bowl. Kintsugi. Is that how you pronounce it?
Sounds good to me.
Good. But I love the idea of it because it's when something breaks, it's a Japanese tradition. And when something breaks, it's just different.
Yeah.
Until you repair it and it's gold filled, all the cracks and stuff like that. It's kind of, the old Greek statues, we see them from a distance. We're like, those are beautiful. And then you see them up close and it's a whole different.
Yeah.
It's something completely different, not better, not worse, just different. And I think I love the idea of that because, and I would love to get kind of where this fits in with you, but I have a friend who talks about, and I won't say her name, but I am going to share part of her story, but being diagnosed, feeling very physically broken. She was diagnosed with MS, all this stuff. And she's like, I feel at some point when I channeled all of it, I laid down and God just pieced me back together, the Japanese art of kintsugi.
Right.
And I have held that with me because I think if I look back at my life, I always tell people, like, if I'm falling forward, I'm never failing, and failing is okay. But like, if I just need to fall forward, like I'm going to trip. And I tell people I live my life with a grace that comes from falling on my face on a regular basis,
Yeah.
And I think it's the same idea, but she always talks about it. She's like, so all my DNA is just kintsugi'd. And I love it. And I'm like, that is such a like powerful thing to think about, that hers was very physical and putting yourself back together and kind of what that looks like. So I guess talk to me about the bowl art.
Well, I saw it, like, I think it was on Facebook. I don't know. It popped up on something, and it didn't show a bowl, but it just talked about being broken, and that, the Japanese would take the broken bowl and they would repair it, but they wouldn't just repair it. They would use the gold or the brass or something in there that made it stronger and made it more beautiful. And so the piece may not have been used in the same way that it was used before.
Right.
But it's now something that is stronger and more beautiful. And it's beautifully broken. I mean, the bowl is still evidently broken, but it's just so beautiful. And so when I saw that, it just kind of stuck with me for a long time. And and it just hit me that I was like, that really represented me. Mm-hmm. Like, I had just gotten to such a broken place that I literally woke up one day and left. Like, there was no prep, no plan. Like, I was empty. I was broken. And I felt so broken for years. And so when I saw that, I was like, okay. I can be broken.
Right. I'm allowed to be.
Right. But it doesn't mean I can't gain strength and beauty in my brokenness. But being able to admit that I was broken, that it was big. It was like, okay, I can admit that, and it doesn't make me weak. It doesn't make me ugly. It doesn't make me anything but broken. But being able to try to repair that brokenness within me, and you know what? I'm still a little bit broken. I'm just going to try to be used in a different light. And so this past birthday, my mom got me that beautiful little broken bowl. And so I, put it on the bar in my kitchen, and it just reminds me every day, I look at it and I look how pretty it is. And I think to myself too, would it really have been as beautiful and symbolic if it was just the regular bowl? The regular bowl's cute, fine, wonderful, but it wouldn't. And so in the brokenness and in the strength that now that gold just comes out of all those cracks. And I love the little hole in it, because I'm like, to me, it's like a crack that lets light through. Like, my light in my brokenness can come out. And that's just kind of the thing with me. I have learned how to be so real, so raw, so authentic. If you don't like what I've said, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to be authentic.
Sorry, not sorry.
Right, right. And that's out of my brokenness.
Right.
And it's such an awesome thing, and God works in such great ways, because it's like the little things that you hear that'll just pierce your heart, because I know he needed me to see that day and really go through the journey to be able to say out loud, I am broken. But not stay there, to realize that in my brokenness, there was something.
I think there's such power in kind of admitting I talk about it from my sense of physical health, is like, I fell unconditionally grace-filled in love with my body, but I still recognized that there were things that needed to change in my health, but my health was not dependent upon the size of my body. But I think that there's such power in saying I am broken, and that I am capable of pulling my pieces back together, but it's only with work and grace that I'm able to put it back together. Like, it comes from out and letting and asking for help sometimes, just saying like, hey, I'm going to need some support in this. Yeah. Like, I'm drawing a boundary, whether it's from friends, whatever it is. So I think in that, I told you that there were 2 questions that I like to ask. So like, how would you define, going through all this with your life experience, how would you define health?
Well, honestly, health, it's mind, body, and spirit, like all of it. Because if you just have one, that's still not health. Right. Like, you can truck along and do your workouts and eat healthy and your body just be in magnificent shape. But if your mind is if you have torment or whatever, where you're not healthy in your mind, that you're not walking in health.
Right.
Same thing with spiritual. If whatever your spiritual journey is, whatever it may be. But I mean, for me, it's God. I mean, and just not having that healthy relationship with God to just fill yourself within the spirit, all three of those to me is what makes up health. And it's not, my health isn't your health.
Right.
And I think that's huge. There is not a one size fits all. And it is so holistic and it's just so big. I mean, the energy that you pour out comes back in. Like there's just so much to me that is such an individual thing. The energy that I may pour out into someone is not the same that you would be. The things that we are all designed and created in such a different way. So our health that is uniquely ours is also so different.
Right. 100%. And I think that really goes down to it is that what is healthy for me or what feeds me may not be the same for you. And it's also something like I'm not in your journey. So like
Right.
I can't speak. And it's amazing to me how often we speak to other people's health journey when it's like, stay in your lane. I promise they'll come. They'll take an exit if they want your opinion. And so the other question, which you're like, oh my gosh, is where do you feel like the line is between the things that we do that really serve us and the things that we do that are really toxic, all in the name of health? You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Whitney. So I've really been like totally thinking on that. And I think that a lot of times, like what we do in the name of health is an external that can become toxic, because if you're so caught up on one aspect of something that is, quote, healthy, even eating. I mean, I take eating as a good, perfect for me to kind of to relate to, because I grew up with a mother who had an eating disorder. So I grew up with food as the enemy. And then I was bound and determined to not allow food to control me when I was a young adult. And then I have children who have severe food allergies. I have one child who has a rare disorder. If he ate things, it was bad. It wasn't skin hives. He would become sick. So food became such a focus in my home at this point. But was that a healthy focus? It did become like everything. It was crazy. I couldn't use the same pots to cook foods in that I would be cooking for them as I did for me. So there became, once again, an unhealthy look at food. And so to think of it in the way that, food is healthy. And I was cooking healthy food because it had to be.
Right.
What we were putting in our body was healthy. I was hardcore, but you know what? I became so obsessed that it did become toxic. It was in such a way that I would just become hysterical if someone walked in the kitchen with cow milk. Like, what are you doing? And so, I mean, that's the only thing that I can kind of relate to, that when you take something to such an extreme, that becomes a focus and a focal thing. And when I tell you food was a focus and a focal thing on a daily basis in my home while I was dealing with these issues with my kids, it was the grocery shopping, the cooking of it, the eating of it, the whole of it, that my focus, like, that was toxic.
Right.
Even though I was cooking probably the best food that could have been cooked, whole foods, organic foods, everything, but that wasn't being healthy.
Well, and I think that really kind of goes to I love what you said. It's like anything to an extreme, right? Because then you kind of lose that perspective,
right,
of what it's really supposed to serve.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are 20 million things that we could go on, and I've loved this. And I want to have you back. I always like to keep things kind of like short and sweet, like carpool line for people. So let's really, I would love to kind of have you back and talk about all of this, because I think even from the perspective of the food allergies and stuff, that's something that I've never really had to consider. And I'm grateful for that, but how many people you're considering that, and then you take it to that extreme and food becomes the enemy, as opposed to something like, let's embrace other things. So thank you so much for coming on. To all the listeners, thank you for tuning in. I would love for you to make sure you go follow Beth on all the social media. We're going to drop them in the show notes and everything. And remember to honor your body for what it does and not what it looks like. Thank you so much, Beth.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Thin Fat Line. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort, and we'll catch you in the next episode.